are in the office of a daytime court TV producer. The Judge Judy's, the People's Courts, yeah, shows like that. The cases are insane. The litigants are insane. The only thing the staff has to keep them going is shitty office coffee and the threat of being replaced. This is my cubicle. This is daytime justice.
All rise.
Why, looky there. Beyond the tumbleweed and the cactus and the horses and the coyote, well, there's a judge back there. His name's Judge Larry Joe Doherty, and he presides over a TV show called Texas Justice.
Today on Texas Justice, it's nothing but the best weddings.
Mazel tov! Let's have some cake.
Fights.
No, I should have whooped him when I did it. But you know what? It's right here. It's right here. We're right here.
You want your money, your watch and drive, you shut up.
And you shut up.
Performances. And surprises.
You know, if you know what's back there, it's why you ain't pulling that rope in.
And it's all next on the best of Texas Justice.
Yes, Texas Justice ran from the years 2001 to year 2005. It was the little court show that could. It was originally conceived to be a local show for local markets, but it tested so high that they decided to take it national. Lasted 4.5 seasons, and is famous for being hysterical. Judge Doherty's really cool. He is my guest on the show today. I loved Texas Justice because I loved him, and his bailiff was badass. William did not take any crap from anyone and would kick you out of the courtroom in 2 seconds. He was like Bird on Judge Judy, only with like a mid-level afro. Not like a full-on afro, but more hair than Bird. And he was really, really awesome. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know Judge Doherty. I had never worked on the show. I had never met him. And what a delight and a pleasure and a very smart man this guy is. Please welcome Judge Larry Doherty. Tell me, did you ever think you were going to be a TV judge?
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that was going to happen. It was what I call a cosmic convergence of time, opportunity, and desire. And when those three things meet in space, it's just destined to happen. But the things that can conspire to keep them from meeting are statistically incalculable. So lots of stuff that we say we'd like to see or like to do, we dream about, we think about, just never get to come about because the opportunity doesn't present itself. And when it did, I said, I can do that.
Now, did you have any idea that the people that the producers were going to book on the show were going to be so wacky?
I actually had no paradigm other than what I had seen on other court TV shows for what the litigants may look like or where they actually came from. I didn't know what stringers were, and I didn't know how court television shows operated. I assumed that those were real cases, but I didn't know that they were the unusual cases sought for the entertainment value. But if it weren't entertaining, it wouldn't have ratings, and if it didn't have ratings, it wouldn't be on the air very long, that's for sure.
Yes. True. And, it's funny because, there are so many boring small claims cases out there, and it's such work to sift through all the boring ones to find the wacky ones. But those are always the ones that make the best TV.
Yeah, you could have a steady diet of, Judge, I bought the cell phone time and I shared it with her and she didn't pay me my part of the cell phone back. You could just go on for weeks and months and years with people trying to be the telephone company, and that would be as interesting as watching the paint dry. And your ratings would go down, and nobody would tune in after a while because that's the same story. And what really drives the show, though, is not so much the facial reason for why they brought the claim. It's the backstory, the what's going on beneath the surface. And when you let people talk, let them talk sometimes over each other. They just want to have their day in court. They want to have their say. They want to get it off their chest. And the judge ought to be someone who listens rather than interferes. And if you get them talking, the truth will spill out on the floor along with their guts. They'll spill their guts, Grandma used to say. And when that happens, they can't hide it anymore. It's like, oops, the truth came out. And that's always interesting. And usually no two backstories are alike. So when you get an unusual front-end story and an unusual back-end story, you're really driving the train with variety. And that is the spice of life, you know.
Yes, it is. So I was telling you yesterday when we were chatting that what I really liked about your show was you. You know, I feel like on some court shows you're either watching for the judge or you're watching for the wacky litigants, and with your show you're really watching to see you. You know, how did you, like, when you got the job and you started hearing the cases, were you just yourself on the bench, or is there something you took into consideration for yourself, like, this is the judge I want to be? Like, what was your approach, and what did people say to you after they saw you on the show?
Well, what you saw was what you got. The judge on the bench was the me in real life that would have been talking to you the same way, whether we were in a courtroom or in a conference room at the law office. I was and had been chagrined for years that we have a stereotype of justice in America, the sort of the sinner in the hands of an angry God, where the judge is going to do severe, harsh, retributive justice, and you're going to pay the price. And it's kind of funny. People would want to know, do you administer the death penalty in Texas justice? And I said, not for a civil case, and not for something of $5,000 jurisdictional limits, not yet anyway, and not in Texas even. So I wanted to demonstrate that there was a better paradigm for justice than what you could get on shows like Judge Judy, where harshness was tuned into. And like I told you the other day, you give Judge Judy the credit she deserves for having the highest rankings and ratings. More people are potentially interested in seeing that sort of harsh, mean-spirited justice than they are in seeing something worked out humorously. But when you have a fallacy in your thinking, when you're just all screwed up and you augured into court with your last ounce of good sense sending you there instead of taking justice into your own hands, and you're asking the judge to do something for you that you're really not entitled to, and instead of getting a tongue lashing and a head knocking and a tail kicking by the court, if the court can reduce your argument to its logical absurdity, it's called reductio ad absurdum, and get it to a point where everybody can laugh at it, and even the litigant themselves can laugh at themselves, then the fallacy of their thinking becomes obvious, and everybody realizes where the justice in the circumstances lay, and you go away with a good feeling instead of a bad feeling. I wanted to try to achieve that. I don't know if we did or not. We were the #1 new daytime TV show in America in 2001 when the show debuted. But we were sort of middle of the pack for ratings from that time till the time the show ended, after doing something like 600 episodes. So we set out to achieve a goal. I think we achieved that goal, and I'm sorry that it became about the judge instead of about the litigants. It's really about their story, and it's an exercise in storytelling, and that's what we wanted to do, is to give people a chance to tell their story.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I meant it. Actually meant it in a good way. That, you watch. I mean, the litigants were great and the stories were great, but it was great watching you deal with them because you were funny and it was Texas. I don't know. That was my appeal and why I watched the show.
Well, I think sometimes our justice system in Texas gets a bad rap because of the criminal justice system, and all lawyers, all judges, and everybody in the system gets painted with the same brush. Most people can't tell you the difference between civil and criminal justice, between small claims and appellate claims. Most people don't know sick'em from come here about the American judicial system or how it works, and that's a sad commentary on a great experiment in the history of mankind, and we really need more education about it. We need more people filing more civil lawsuits rather than more people taking criminal matters into their own hands. We're building more prisons than we are school systems today because we have more of a focus on criminal law and on punishing people than on educating them. And if we educated better than we punished, people would know the difference between our criminal justice system and our civil justice system, and they'd know that they could settle disputes by taking them to our civil justice system instead of shooting somebody. I used to call Texas justice the civil alternative to gunplay.
Well, that's funny. It's a funny saying, but it's true. I mean, we just had a mass murder here in LA. Some crazy ex-husband was upset about this was more of a domestic dispute, but they're fighting over custody of their 8-year-old, and he went to her place of work and killed everyone.
Yeah, and that kind of a person, potentially more than just crazy, they're in terrible pain. And you think about these litigants in small claims court and how off the wall they are, and how irrational some of their arguments are, and you wonder, where did they come from? Who put these people up to this? This can't be real. Let your listeners know that every one of those litigants, at least on Texas Justice, were their neighbors. Those folks live next door to you, and the pain they're in may be a small claim in our system, but it was a big claim to them, and it's just as important to them as somebody's $5 million claim is to them. If you've only got a little dab of money and you lose $5,000, that hurts just as bad as if you got a lot of money and you lose $5 million. The hurt's just as important to you.
Yeah, even with the smaller dollar amounts, when people sue for smaller dollar amounts, they're even more angry because they're suing over principle. They're like, oh no, you're not going to get away with this, and they're sometimes I find them to be even more angry than the ones that are suing for $5,000.
Oh yeah, and please save me from people who are principled and suing over money. It's always about the money.
So talk to me a little bit about what what kind of a lawyer you are, and what your life was like before Texas Justice. Like what kind of cases you heard and what kind of law you practiced.
Well, I graduated from law school when I was 23 years old, and that's far too young to practice law, but I had hair. Fortunately, I lost some of that along with my youthful exuberance, but early in my career, I had an experience of telling a fella that I wasn't able to sue a lawyer for him, and the lawyer needed to be sued because the lawyer had cheated him. But I was working for a large law firm representing people who were personally injured. And when a lawyer cheats you, you're personally injured. You're just hitting the pocketbook instead of in the back of the head. It hurts just as bad to get hurt in the pocketbook sometimes. And my boss wouldn't let me sue him. He said, "Oh, no, we'll get a bad reputation." And exactly the opposite is true, but then I've learned that most things didn't operate the way I was taught in my youth that they did. But I made a pledge that when I went into practice on my own or got to be my own boss, I wasn't going to refuse to sue somebody just because they were a lawyer. And in 1974, I went into practice on my own and almost immediately got a case against a lawyer that had represented the husband and wife in a divorce. And naturally, he cheated the wife because the husband was his business client. And from 1974 to 1988, my practice slowly became known in the legal community as one that was open to litigants who wanted to sue their lawyer for malpractice. And in 1978, I became board certified as a personal injury trial lawyer. And for the longest time around, I was the only board certified personal injury trial lawyer that would sue another lawyer, any lawyer. In Houston anyway, or in this community. It's one of the reasons I like practicing law here. There's enough malpractice going on in Houston, Harris County, Texas. I don't have to go very far to find it.
Goodness.
There's a lot of lawyers in this community. But there's also a lot of good lawyers. People would want to know, so, well, you must be the pariah of the law practice. I said, no, I may not get invited to Christmas parties, but that's okay. When somebody wants the garbage taken out after the party is over, and they don't want to get their hands dirty, they send the case to me. And most of my business, 99% of it, comes from other lawyers who don't want to get their hands dirty suing somebody who needs to be sued. And it's offensive to them. Judges don't like bad lawyers. Most other lawyers don't like bad lawyers. Lawyers have a bad reputation because we've earned it the old-fashioned way by taking advantage of clients one case at a time. And there's no reason in the world for a lawyer to have a special set of rules that prevents them from being held accountable for their malpractice and wrongdoing, and exclude them from being brought up in court in front of a judge and jury the same way we do accountants, engineers, doctors, truck drivers, and other professionals. So what I've done in my law practice is make the system work for the legal profession the way it works for all other professions. And that's been quite rewarding. When I figured out that the senior partner in the law firm might have to pay for the mistakes of the idiot associate, I knew my daddy's youngest son was not going to die poor. It has given me kind of a jaundiced view on the bar. I think it was Chief Justice Warren Burger was quoted as saying that 50% of the lawyers were incompetent. And I think he was maybe a little bit low in his estimate. but with that jaundiced view, it came to me because nobody ever came to me complaining about what a good job their lawyer did. And by the time Texas Justice came along, I was not only willing to say, yeah, I can do that, but I was ready for a paradigm shift. I wanted to take a break and try something new. And it just came along at the right time. And I knew that not only was I going to get the part or get the opportunity, but I knew that Fox was going to pick that show up and take the pilot and make a series out of it. I didn't know we were going to be so successful in the genre, but I knew the show was going to be fun to do, and I knew it was going to be a success.
Wasn't it originally, because we talked about this yesterday a little bit, wasn't the show originally supposed to be local, and then it ended up being such a hit that they rolled it out nationally?
Yeah, originally it was just supposed to be a test of a theory, and the theory was that you could do local television production that was competitive with the quality of television production that's done in Los Angeles, and New York, and Chicago, if you just put your mind to it and built the right facility. So Fox had a need to build a new television station, and Fox has what they call owner-operated facilities, and they own and operate their local television station in Houston. So they built a sound studio on the side of their new owner-operated TV station and decided that they would put on in production in this new facility they built a television show. They just didn't know what they were going to do, and the fellow that ordered it done unfortunately died before production of anything ever got started, but construction got started and completed, and an empty soundstage worth somewhere around $50 million, I've been told, sat there for a couple of years. And the new president strolled through town one day looking at his facility and said, "What are you producing?" And the fellow that ran the television station said, "Producing? I'm not a TV producer. I'm a television station manager." And he said, "What? What are you doing with this studio we built?" He said, "We use it for our parties." Like hell you do. We're going to produce something. So they got the creative genius of an absolute artist, Catherine Siegel Levine, Professor Levine now. She teaches television and radio science in New Jersey at a university up there. She was instructed to produce a show, build something. Let's see if it works. And she came to town and decided that they would do a court TV show. And they would call it Texas Justice. And they said they were looking for a Texas accent. So they had a casting call to lawyers, judges, mediators, arbitrators, and retired members of the bar that they thought might be worthy candidates to audition for being the judge on the show. And 25 people were recommended, referred to them, pretty much the way you ought to hire a lawyer if you don't know who you want to hire for handling a case. They sent out requests for referrals, and my name came up, and I got a phone call one day. Said, "You want to be a judge on TV?" I said, "Yeah, sure." No, we're serious. If you'd like to be a judge on TV, come down and talk to Miss Levine. So I said, "Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I can do that." But after talking Catherine, and realizing that they were serious, she said, "Do you have any questions?" When we were through, when she was through questioning me, I said, "Just one." She said, "What is it?" I said, "What could I say to you right now that would cause you to quit asking these other 24 people some questions and just give it to me?" And she laughed and she said, "There's nothing." I said, "Well, okay. I just thought it was at least worth asking you that question because, you know, that this is something you're saying, all right, you know." So they called 10 of us back and did a test, a mock
test.
trial. Yeah. Well.
Oh, so wait, you guys did a mock trial. So they actually had you hear a case.
No, it was a fake case with actors from the staff that were of producers and workers that were going to be on the show when production started, playing roles. But from those 10, they decided to do a test case of one real case, and that was the pilot. And that was the Decabooter case, and that was where William and I met, and they liked the pilot so much that they decided that it would, instead of just doing a local show, they would do a slow rollout, and they would put Texas Justice in 9 owner-operated stations, pretty much in the Bible Belt of America. Fox does real well in the Bible Belt. And we were knocking their socks off from Nashville to Phoenix. And they said to themselves, May is coming up. And if we ruin the shows that we have in the can for Sweeps Week being a month of shows, we won't be in as good a shape in November when the new season starts. If we want to run this series as a new strip, we ought to pull it off the air now. So they shut down the distribution of the show sometime in April of 2001 and pulled it off the air. We went back into production with orders for a full season of new shows, plus what we had already shot, and debuted the show in September of 2001 as a nationally syndicated show in something like 98% of the markets. So it went from being a test to being a local to being a slow rollout to being a nationally syndicated show in less than a year.
That's crazy. Now, when you were a judge on TV, did you ever meet any of the other TV judges at any of the NatP events or anything?
One or two. I met Judge Maybelline on divorce court, and I met a couple of the judges on the $100,000 Pyramid show. There wasn't an occasion for us to actually get together. It was not like an association of television court judges where
right.
we had any kind of convention or occasion to talk to each other. But Maybelline and I met in New York pretty much close to the time just before Texas Justice ended, and pretty much just before her show was ended. Her contract came to an end, and they didn't renew it a year after our show was ended. We were doing 10 cases a day So that was a week's worth of shows, two cases per show, 5 shows per day. Yeah, we would do 3 days back to back. We would do 3 weeks worth of shows in 3 days.
Well, yeah, that's every court show. I mean, on Judge Joe Brown, because I've worked on that show as well, we tape 13 cases a day.
Wow.
Yeah, because of the fact that it's 2. But with divorce court, it almost feels like a longer day, even though you're only doing 8 or 9 cases a day, because those cases are for a full half-hour show. So you have to really dig for story and have lots of elements, or else you don't fill your 30 minutes.
Well, there was no real slow time during any of our cases, but the energy was always very high. I mean, Catherine Levine had a monitor in the middle of my desk that I could read, but nobody else could see. There was otherwise no communication between me and the control room. Nothing was scripted. There was no IPB in my ear, or IFB, or BPT, or...
It's an IFB.
I didn't have one of those in my ear. Everything was extemporaneous, or impromptu, or off the cuff, or shoot from the lip. And all the time, the screen would flash, energy, and I can hear Catherine to this day going, energy, which meant, get the same energy up at the end of the day as you have at the beginning of the day, because you don't know if that case is going to be showing the front end or the back end.
How did you keep your wits about you? And how, did you ever, you clearly didn't turn into an egomaniac. You're still, a nice, normal Texan, and you're not. Was it hard for you to maintain your ego? Did you ever feel any of those, feelings of like, well, I'm on television and people are giving me free stuff, I'm going to go for it?
Well, do you know what a psychodrama is?
I think so, but explain.
One of the great experiences in my life was getting to go to Jerry Spence's Trial Lawyers College in 1996. And I knew when I went and experienced how he works with lawyers to make them better human beings rather than to make them better lawyers, that he was on to something.
Wait, is Jerry Spence that guy who lives in Colorado?
And Wyoming.
Yeah, Wyoming. Okay.
He lives in both places. It's so damn cold in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that he has to live in California during the winter or he'd freeze to death. So you know him as living in California because every time he was on the OJ case, he was out in California.
Right.
Okay. It's the same guy. And he does a great job of teaching a technique to lawyers to get to the truth. But the truth is inside us. It's a personal truth. And you access that truth with a technique called psychodrama, where you re-experience events that formed how you view things. And your emotional maturity is not always the same as your age or your intellectual maturity. There's a great deal of difference between how adults act and how they think and how they should act for how old they are. And the reason for that is the events that shape their emotional maturity were set in place when they were children. And if they revisit them with an intellect that allows them to alter and change the past, they can change how it impacts them. And I've been through several years of working with that technique to develop trial skills that allow us to get to the truth of what happens in a case. And there's just nothing that Fox did that surprised me. I knew from the get-go what to expect, and I was very happy to have the opportunity. You flatter me by saying that the show was enhanced by me being there, and I appreciate that. If I bought it solely into that, I might have indulged. There goes the phone. I might have indulged myself the belief that it was totally true, but there were 250 people working on that set. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just can't stop somebody from calling me. I mean, and they all sweated bullets to put that show together. So I could see on a day-to-day basis that it wasn't all about me. And Fox could have cared less about the quality of the show. We could have polished the stone until it shone like the bat lantern on the side of the buildings in downtown Houston, and it wouldn't have mattered to them. But they got what they wanted, and I got an opportunity I wouldn't have gotten if they hadn't given it to me. So I'm eternally grateful. I was lucky to get it. I was happy to have the opportunity. I'm proud to have had the experience. It was something that will probably never happen to me again, but it was also good to go. You got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run.
So true. Well, it's good that you had the experience, but I'm sure it would have gotten tired over time if you had still been dealing with the crazies. And I know it gets tiring for us as staffers and as producers. You just get to a breaking point and you're like, I just got to walk away for 6 months or a year or several years before you can go back to the genre, because it is so stressful.
The staff gets worn down like the tip end of a rubber eraser, a lot worse than I do. They do everything they can do to cater to the judges' every whim, and the next person in line is William, and he didn't have to say much, did he? He could blink and say a mouthful. And William was a great guy. I really, really enjoyed just his presence. And
did you pick the bailiff, or did they cast the bailiff?
He was selected by one of the producers without competition.
Okay.
He just absolutely had nobody. I'm going to see if I can kill this phone down here. And I don't know how to do it.
Did you just something just fell?
And that was upstairs.
Oh, okay.
It might have been my mother. If you hear screaming and hollering, it was Mom.
How old is your mom now?
She's 93.
Bless her heart.
She gets around with a walker. Boy, but she gets around.
Before we go, can you tell me a little bit, like, what is your life like now? And, what is your life like now? Because I know the last time I called you were building a fence.
My wife and I made several moves with the new millennium, and Texas Justice came along right at, as I said, at that cosmic convergence of change in lifestyle. And 85 miles out of Houston is like living on another planet. We live in Burton, Texas, on 270 acres of wildlife habitat.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
And we're in an area of ecological description known as the Post Oak Savanna. So there's a lot of cedar trees that have grown up in the Post Oak Savanna that are invasive species. So to get rid of them, I take a chainsaw and go out and cut them down and build crossbuck fences on the property. because they drink a lot of water, and we're in a drought, and that's a good thing to do to improve the environment around here, because the animals need the water and they need the open space, and there's just a lot more important things than lawsuits and law and cases and courts and television. And water seems to be the most important one, because we're not running out of water. There's an amount that recycles naturally from the sky. It's rainwater, but it's the source of all drinking water. And where it falls and how we capture it, however, determines how much we get as humans to use, and there's more and more of us on this planet trying to get a clean drink of water. And our most important political issue in the next millennium is going to be drinking water. And how we treat our open space land and how we use our open space land is going to determine the availability of the supply for drinking water. And that's one of the things I've been working on. That's what I've been doing in the last 10 years, as well as a little practice of law. I haven't totally quit practicing law. I've phased it back to where I work on fewer cases. My law partner works on more cases. It's been rewarding and it's been interesting. James Taylor said, "I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen summer days that I thought would never end." And damn, I think he's right. These summers around here have gone on for an entire year. The drought has just got us in a strangle grip. And right behind it have come these fires into the center of Texas where they've never been before. So I'm part of a group that's heading up what's called prescribed burns to reacquaint people with a burning technique to eliminate buildup of fuel that runs wild when wildfires get started. In California, the canyons just go up in blazes because they're not burned ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And our organization burns fuel loads to eliminate that buildup, to try to cut down on fires that are out of control and unplanned. So I've seen lawsuits and bad lawyers, and I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I like rain and fire better than bad lawyers.
How cool is Judge Larry Joe Doherty? Just a down-to-earth guy who had a great time being on a court show, who's got a great sense of humor about himself, and gives a shit about the environment. So thank you so much, Judge Larry. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and my audience. And now a call to action. Please come visit my website, which is actually my blog. It's at www.daytimejustice.com. If you like the show, rate me and review me on iTunes. If you hate the show, rate me and review me somewhere else. I hope one day I can get Judge Joe and Judge Marilyn Milian and Judge Maybelline on the show. I have reached out to all of them. I am waiting to hear back. And make sure you follow me on Twitter at Daytime Justice or at Sharon_Houston. And I also have a Facebook page, Daytime Justice. And come see me when I'm doing stand-up around town. I'm going to be at the Acme Comedy Theater on November 15th doing a half-hour set with two of my favorite comedians, Michelle Balloon and Amber Tozer. It will be a fun night for all, and the money goes to charity. It'll be a really fun time. It's at 8 o'clock at the Acme Comedy Theater, and I will see you in 2 weeks with a new episode of Daytime Justice. So get that shitty office coffee ready, and I'll see you in my cubicle.